serpent swiftness.
Steal your temper. Stay back. Space and time are both my domain. Bathe the glow.
Venenu, who will use the beads of his own. He's backpedaling as best he can. Jake provides some peel with the River's Rebuke. Panatom leaps on away as l3lackStar tried to close that gap just a little bit further. Venenu's been alone here, but he's the Osiris. He's tanky enough to stay alive. It's a leap away from Wrongyou, and somehow Gourmizer, everyone's alive, but Zapman alone in the back.
He's alone, just absolutely isolated. You can see the Bifrost Crystal. That's down. The bolts are sharks in the water, and they smell the blood. It's just how long Zapman can stay out of here. Aussie passive going. I honestly thought he was going to try to hit the Draugr to get some healing.
That's smart from Bera here. Backpedal away, because that would be the only saving grace there if Zapman was able to walk forward and end up getting the kill onto Bera. That is wild.
The crystal just came up.
You can see it just came up towards the end of it there. You could tell, right? That was a very telegraphed, not by either team necessarily, but we could see on the map the two teams closing in towards one another. That was a very quick transformation by Venenu. He found himself alone in the back there, transformed into the Osiris, and then extra tankiness kept him in the fight a little bit longer.
It's that weird juggle, right? We saw him try to transform into the Artemis earlier. He got absolutely melted before he could do anything. Maybe that was the lesson learned, right? It's like, hey, I could do a lot of damage like Bera, but it comes at the expense of being as squishy as Bera. It is easy to kill off an Artemis in that circumstance. Or you can change to the Osiris like we just saw. l3lackStar's been able to output a pretty good tanky enough to not only disengage, but really control that fight. And it separates the Leviathans. It pulls Zap completely isolated while the rest are pushed under their tier 2/Phoenix line in mid. And it opens up the Bolt's opportunity to collapse in on Zap there. And as much as I like to highlight it, like I'd mentioned the Aussie maybe trying to use the passive, get a couple of shots on the Draugr to get some healing. There's only so much you can do there if you're Zap. You're just trying to buy as much time until that crystal comes up and hope that you could get it off. And unfortunately, the Bolts were just prepared for it.
Zapman, not a bad game by any means. Third on the damage charts, top on his team, 2-3-2. At KDA, that's not necessarily indicative of the pressure that Zapman's been able to put out, but there's been a lot of dive put onto Zap, and was 2-2-2 before Zap was a bit caught out on his own there. l3lackStar has this Witchblade here. That might be sort of indicative then of what l3lackStar's looking to do. Jump in on Zapman, slow down that attack speed as much as you can, and make that backline uncomfortable. Not much ends up coming of that first FG there, Gore, with a couple of the members of the Leviathans going down immediately after. This one, though, maybe the one that could seal the deal for the Bolts or maybe for the Leviathans, depending on which team is able to secure it cleaner.
I mean, that's a hefty Fire Giant to start, and you can see Bera, he's holding onto it, but you want to get engaged. The River's Rebuke already used. I want to see him go in. And
it separated the fight, but Jake has taken half of his HP in return. Panatom has already used the Ragnarok and didn't get anyone with it. This is the Leviathans backing away. They want a second wind against the team of second winds, and the Olympus Bolts happy to give them that opportunity. Panatom's ult down, Jake's is as well.
That's the only big difference maker. I'm looking at the Tusky, I'm looking at Venenu, and they're going to go in on Vin.
Oh, Vin, he's got to transform here to get out of the fight. He does. It's the Osiris once more. Yarkor considering a chase down, but instead, there's more priority targets over by the FG. All the front line low now for the Olympus Bolts. l3lackStar's in behind. As that Osiris could make some damage in the back line. Look at Tusky ripping through. Big stuns on the front. Oh, are you kidding me? The unluckiness. That is devastating there, Gore. All right, so we take a little pause here. in what would be.
Trying to remember
this is
where
gonna be
everyone was standing, all those health bars. It feels like a what happens next moment.
Well, what I saw was Tusky flying on through, stunning what felt like everyone for the Leviathans there.
Yeah.
Oh, that is difficult. This is gonna be a master class in casting if it comes immediately back into that, and we gotta pick it up right where it was. An important though team fight there, Gore, and what still is a team fight on the back end of this break, because it felt, or on the back end of the pause, because it felt like the Leviathans had a little push in the front of it, and then Barracuda joins and we'll have to wait and see, flip things around.
I think the other key is watching Vin. That transformation's already down. He's still there at about half health, which is it's like a good spot to try and push back as the Morgan. Also a very dangerous spot to try and push back at the Morgan. I didn't see before the pause went through where his relic situation was, but I imagine already having your ult forced out, you're not necessarily feeling too confident and too comfortable in your ability to jump right back into the Leviathans. And a lot of the bolts were on the retreat. Outside of Tusky, there wasn't a whole lot of pushing forward, so the Leviathans had that Fire Giant pit control, and that makes things even more awkward for a re-engage. Now you're trying to get around the walls, you're trying to regroup, you're kind of separated into two sections, one on one side of the Harpy XP camp, and then one kind of going around the other towards mid. And that can't really bode well for you if the collapse in from the Leviathans just turns towards one. We saw the same thing happen to Zap earlier. It could be Vin, it could be Barra, it could be anybody on the bolts that kind of meet the receiving end of that one.
This is such a unique – I think you're the one who's pitched the show, like what happens next, where we get to sit
pause
down
the team fight.
Well, that's literally what we're going to get to do here, Goremizer. The pause about to unpause here, and the Fire Giant team fight resumes with Venenu getting rid of Shinto. So now there's 2 members down for the Leviathans, but Awesome Jake, low HP as well. But the Leviathans are all split up, and it looks like the Bolts are going to be able to run them on down. 1 kill return.
Wow.
But Venenu makes it a double before he goes to the grave. It's a deicide for the Olympus Bolts, and it'll be FG as well.
And I thought the separation was going to be worse for the Bolts, but they were the ones driving the Leviathans apart there. You could see, I mean, Zapman just absolutely, once again, isolated, cornered. He had the crystal, but the timer on that one didn't work for him. Unfortunately, you know, Vin in that pause menu is looking at Shinto just right down the barrel and knows exactly where he's going to go, and you just pointed it out to me. Beads and Aegis up there for Shinto. Maybe not prepared for that final hit, or maybe he recognized the futility of it. They spent the, minute there in the pause, and he's like, guys, I'm dead.
Yeah, not worth it.
There's no way to get around this one. I'm gone.
Well, look at these death timers. So this is a unique position here for the Olympus Bolts. Shinto's up in 5, Rongyu's up in 8, Zapman will be up in 10. Panatom is going to revive here as well. So Venenu's gone. And it looks like the 4v5 and the impending respawn's enough to make the Olympus Bolts turn away. But it's a mid lane Phoenix down here, Gore. And that's very early on here in this Fire Giant power play. So the Bolts will have plenty of time, 3 minutes and 15 seconds from now, to continue to push in. Could end the game on this FG.
I mean, you've got no minions push up and left. They're just barely outside your tier 2. Same thing on right, except just barely out of where the tier 1 used to exist. So you're going to spend time. You've got the enhanced buffs. Grab those wherever you can. Then the question starts to become where you want to aggress and where they're going to push up. A lot of people tend to go and opt for left. Right's pushed up a little bit further. Either or is going to work out well for him. Yeah, Barra's kind of carrying a whole lot of gold. He's going to upgrade it. He just got the chin size. I think he upgraded his starter there. Maybe he already had that one. It should be a lot of wards as well as he drops all of that gold there. The purification and Aegis upgrade, I believe, coming through. So you have exactly what you want if you're Barra here. Granted, a minute left before your Aegis is back, so maybe not exactly what you'd want.
Wow.
But very, very comfortable position. 6-0-6, by the way, on that Artemis. He's just having a good game.
Look, I want to give some shouts to Jake as well. Yeah, 6-0-6 looks fantastic for Barra. I think Jake has had pretty good Rivers Rebuke priority here this game. It's so easy to concern yourself with, oh, there's only one guy in this one, and it's not worth using it. But it feels like those picks have been worthwhile. The separations of the team fight even have been properly picked here from Jake. I think all the assists that aren't on the board, and he's only not participated in 4 kills here, not even necessarily indicative of the way that he's played. I think this Yemoja's looked fantastic in the hands of Awesome Jake. The big 408 here in game number 1. Needs some more of it here to get this Phoenix down.
I'm actually excited to see it. That's one of the things that makes Yemoja just so devastating in here. I was actually wondering if Vin was going to transform into Yemoja to have like the double Rivers Rebuke. Although I like to use Cyrus
diagram.
The Vin diagram.
Oh, nice! I didn't. That wasn't even intentional, Gore.
Well, Haddix is going in.
Haddix is blinked into the back line. He's found Shinto, and then Lasper's in a perfect spot to collapse. Bye-bye, Merlin, once more here in this game, and the Leviathans They're starting to crumble here on the back line, but it's a Ragnarok onto Haddix. That should be a kill on over, but Veneno, he's going big here. It's a double for Ven. Barracuda gets 2 as well, and the Olympus Bolts take game 1.
I mean, that was crisp towards the end. There's that little bit of a flub. Look, the Leviathans had that great call. You had highlighted it. They win a really decent fight around their tier 2, immediately go over to the FG. But then they lose Zap, they lose Panatom, and it's like, you got the FG, you maintain the buff, but only on 3. Is it worthwhile? And the Bolts utilized that time to knock down at least 1 tier 2. They might have gotten a second one during that push. I can't remember.
Right.
But I know they went and got a lot of neutral objectives and jungle strippage because of that one. And it felt like that was the shining moment for the Leviathans, and they just weren't able to really make it be the true peak they wanted it to be.
I mean, this Bolts team core, they are just so difficult to play against, aren't they? I mean, this is just such a hard team to play against right now. Teams haven't gotten them figured out here yet in Phase 2, and the Bolts definitely haven't gotten them figured out, at least in game number 1. Still plenty more action between the Bolts and the Leviathans. Game number 2, right after this.